I love collecting Batman action figures. I especially loved The Batman. It was an awesome movie, one of my favorite Batman movies ever. And obviously, and naturally, I had to get some of the figures. So this isn't really like a review of them, but it's kind of just an overview, kind of showing how McFarlane does some pretty good stuff, but also there's some issues. I love these figures as they are, but there's a few things I just, it's mostly with Batman, okay? It's mostly with Batman. And if you know the issues that this Batman figure has had, you'll understand. But, I don't regret getting these. I love these. They're nice. They're great. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about them in the order of least problematic to most problematic. So let's start with Riddler, because, Riddler was great in the movie, and this figure is pretty much equally as great. The figure looks really nice. The head, I love the translucent pieces. You can see the ears and the hair. You can even see his eyes. See his eye right there through the glasses. He does have, he has the tape, not because he came with it, but because I made it out of duct tape myself. Yeah, he needed to have it. He came with the carpet tool. That's what he actually came with. He came with that right there, but I have it with Batman, because, he had it at the end of the movie. It's a really nice Riddler. It really is. The arm articulation is very, very what you would expect. The head, though, is super expressive. Even having the, the flap for the mask in the front. Very expressive head. And the legs, too. They're not, superposable, but you get the range you really need out of them. And, of course, as you heard, they all come with the base still, which is really nice. I really do think McFarlane still is doing great stuff at the $20 price point. It's a shame that other companies continue to raise their prices. And you may say, oh, yeah, Marvel Legends is raising their prices, but they include Build-A-Figures. Many of them don't anymore. So, yeah, like these $28 exclusives, there's no BAF. So, anyways, if you want to see me talk about Hasbro's insane price increases, I did a whole video on that. So, yeah, Riddler's a really good figure. I really, really do like that one. I love the paint. It's really nice. Penguin. It's Penguin. What are you going to expect? He came with alternate hands, but, honestly, who cares? They're already put away. I'm never going to use them. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it comes with it, but also he doesn't have anything to hold because it's not McFarlane's fault, but Warner Brothers is like, oh, yeah, we'll make these super violent movies, but we won't allow any of the toys, especially the adult collector ones, to have any form of weaponry. Oh, no. Man, it's whatever. Because, Penguin had that little, machine gun. It was so cool. But yeah, Penguin in the movie was pretty great. I really liked Penguin. And this is a pretty good figure. I like the little splash of color right there. Very penguin-y. The head sculpt's very nice. Very nice head sculpt. It does have the side eye. Not a big fan of the side eye. I'd prefer it not to have the side eye. You'll see later that I have actually already done something about that with one of these. But yeah, this Penguin's, it's very heavy. There's a lot of plastic to him. He is essentially, though, kind of a big old brick, isn't he? It's Penguin. You can move his arms. You get arm articulation. That's great. It's funny, he does have sideways elbows as well as a bicep swivel. It actually seems like the bicep swivel is like a bicep cover. It's almost like how Gundam biceps are made, where the biceps this cover that connects the elbow and the shoulder. It's kind of funny. But torso, forget about it. It's just a big old piece of rubber. His legs, they're interesting because he's got this big old knee. Look at how tiny his shin is because of the knee joint is on the thigh instead of on the shin, how most action figures have it. And it's got this big old hinge. And trying to bend this is not fun. Come on. Oh, there we go. And it's very clicky, too. And it's got this big old hole. It's got the big old hole, too. But yeah, there we go. That's pretty much Penguin. Not too much else to say. It's Penguin. We all know Penguin. We all love Penguin. I like his shoes, too. He's got very dapper shoes. So Catwoman. In my opinion, Catwoman kind of stole the show in the movie. This is by far my favorite live-action Selina Kyle. I really, really loved Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. And this figure is pretty good. I do have some issues with it, mostly that head sculpt. It looks a lot like her. It does. It doesn't really have too much side-eye going on. It's kind of like just a little bit, ever so slight. I mean, you can still kind of have her like in more forward-facing poses. It's not that big of a deal. It's not very drastic like Penguin's or Batman's was. But it's mostly the cowl I have issues with, because there's two variants of Catwoman. One with this unmasked variant, and the other with a masked variant. The masked one doesn't look like how the mask looked in the movie, and this one it still kind of has it on the top of her head, even though when she didn't really have the mask, she didn't have it on at all. So it's unfortunate. I'm just going to assume this is more based off of concept art, but it's something where I kind of would like to see a revised version of Catwoman at some point. But I mean, it's still not bad. It still looks good. The body, very posable, very nice and posable body. I love the articulation on this figure. It's very posable. But there are like a couple weird proportion things. I'm kind of like, one thing is with the ankles. A lot of people don't like these big old like ball joints on the ankles, and I can look past it. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to be looking at her ankles most of the time. Most of the time, when you look at an action figure, at least in my opinion, most of the time I look at the head sculpt. So if the head doesn't look that good, that's like 50% of the look to the figure for me. So I'm not really going to be looking down there too often, but I definitely see how it's an issue. Something else too, I feel like especially once you start moving the torso, the bodies is kind of oddly proportioned. And like one thing too, the rubberiness, the rubberiness of especially her waist right there lends for some funny looks. So let's take a moment to look at the butt of Catwoman. Now let's look at the butt of Catwoman when we move her body back. Do you see that? Look at that. It's got like this fold in it. It's just so funny looking to me. Number one, this is very unnatural looking. Honestly, this point of articulation is not as important as forward, but she doesn't have as much forward. Even then, if she has some forward, like the belt's kind of sticking, and side to side, I feel like she just kind of has like this look where like her belt is like really pinching her stomach. Like you can see there's like this curve on the inside. It's oddly proportioned a little bit, and I do think that is pretty funny. Like you can see it's it's definitely a folded butt. Truth be told, I didn't really notice the butt fold until I was posing her around in this video. That is pretty funny. But overall, man, when it comes to like posability, she's probably my favorite. She's really fun to play with. I really do like all the poses and things you can get. Unfortunately, she just comes with the folded up whip, or I should say the curled up whip. But honestly, her whip was mostly just like a chain. So if you have chains laying around, you could probably just give her that. But yeah, really nice figure. I would like her to hold her whip. There we go. Yeah, she's a really nice one. I'm just kind of disappointed in that head sculpt, and I think the butt fold is pretty funny. It's not a bad thing, honestly. If anything, I just think it's funny, because I'm not. Who's gonna pose your Catwoman with her back facing this way? Like, oh yeah, I really love posing my female action figures with a broken back showing their ass. I'm sure someone out there does. I'm sure someone does. The internet. Yeah, there's Catwoman. Next up, and probably the most problematic, is Batman. Because it's, well, if you know the story, you know the issue with this Batman figure. Or I should say, the issues. So number one, the body was misassembled. It was upside down. So what I had to do, I had to heat it up. I had to flip it, and does it have like, oh, that's actually something else I didn't even realize. It has like a glop of paint. Mine has like a glop of gray paint. Oh, on the bat symbol too. Yeah, it's like they glopped some of the gray paint. Something else I'm noticing just in the video actually. And on the body! It's glopped there too. Oh my gosh. I'm just now noticing that. That's not something I did. No, it's like paint glop. Now I'm making it look worse because I'm like trying to scrape it off. And I have a little white mark on it. But anyways, yeah, I had to swap that. I've been alluding to this, I repainted his eyes. Because the side eye just bugged me too much, man. Especially on Batman. It's like, You want him just standing there. You don't want him like always looking to the side. No, thank you. Not interested. But probably the worst one to me is that they used the cowl, or the collar, I should say, of the unmasked Batman figure. So it had two cowls, the one on his head and one hanging off of his back. No good. That's awful looking. It looked awful. It even impacted like his silhouette because you could see like the folds of the cowl along his shoulders. It looked bad. So it doesn't look perfect, but I just cut it off. Because you can't just take the collar off. That's part of his look. I've seen some people just tear the collar off and they're like, oh yeah, I fixed it. No, you didn't. But yeah, it's kind of a shame. If I do get another Batman that's corrected, I'll probably buy it, and then I'll repaint this one to look like at the end of the movie where he's all muddy and beat up. That'd look really cool. But honestly, other than those issues, and also the issue he doesn't have the holster, Warner Brothers was probably like, oh man, holster implies he has a gun. That's not good. So they probably didn't put that in, which is, it's whatever. It's Warner Brothers being hypocrites. No big deal. But honestly, it's like he's got the grapple gun, or grapnel gun, I should say. I always forget there's an N in there. You can see it's kind of like along the railing of the gauntlet. They can have it go shoop, and then he's got like this open hand with a peg in it so he can use the grapnel gun. Unfortunately, if you don't have the gun in there, he does have like a karate chop hand, but it actually doesn't look that bad, honestly. It's not that big of a deal. And if you get the bat cycle, you get a hand to hold the handlebar. You know, they do sort you out with that. So, you know, he's got that nice accessory. I actually do think that loop right there, you can actually put the peg for the grapnel that goes into the hand in that loop. I actually have it stored there most of the time. But yeah, his articulation, other than that, you have to work with the shoulder pads because they're separate pieces. So you can want to make sure those are kind of going under. But yeah, you know, get the torso fixed. You get a lot of range there. The hips are nice. The knees are nice. The head is very nice. And that head sculpt looks so much like Robert Pattinson. This is a really nice figure, in my opinion. It's just a shame about the quality control issues. McFarlane has been typically pretty good with quality control. It's very, very rare that I hear that a McFarlane figure breaks. It's very rare. And it's also very rare that I see misassembly issues with McFarlane. I do see some missing paint apps from time to time. And I do see some odd choices, but nothing like drastic. McFarlane is not a perfect company. I'm not trying to tout them as like, oh, they can do no wrong. No, they've done plenty wrong. But I still really have to respect that they still put these figures out for $19.99. That's a great price. You still get accessories, you get display bases, you get unique sculpts with a lot of nice paint applications. These are really nice bangs for your buck, and they're some of the best figures on the market right now, especially comparing them to Hasbro, where they're just raising their prices more and more and more and more. And I'm just like, how is the Iron Spider worth $34? How is it worth that? But anyway, do I really recommend these? Yeah. I mean, there's some issues. I hope you get a Batman that doesn't have the issues. But they're not perfect, but I really do like these figures. I do really recommend them, especially at the $20 price. That's a really good price nowadays. It's a shame, but it's a really good price. I would say out of all of these, my favorite one, issues aside, is actually still Batman. I just think it looks really, really good, especially that head sculpt in the armor. Selina Kyle's really good. Riddler's really good. Penguin's he was the last one I got. He was just kind of like, yeah, I want Penguin. He's the character. He can stand there. As a figure, he's not that great. But honestly, these are really nice figures, and I highly recommend them. Alrighty, guys, there we go. Thanks for taking a look at my overview of the Batman figures from McFarlane. I really do like these. Alrighty, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. I don't normally say that, but it just came out of my mouth. Special thanks to the patrons of Patreon. Thank you all so much for the continued support. Alrighty, guys, there we go. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.